I do want to point out the folks that are over here real quickly. Mark Delden and Don Amboyer. They're heavily involved. They're going to be the lead on our behalf when it comes to building and facilities, and for a good reason. Mark's history with the obviously with the schools is done an incredible Chippewa Valley Schools. Dakota High School was under his watch, and there was a major construction project. Don Amboyer was around when we built the tower of the jail, and he understands the construction part of it, specifically when it comes to jails. So the two of them coming together, working with the various people that are going to be part of this, I got to tell you, we're leading this the right direction. And those of you that probably already know, Liz Darga, the undersheriff for the Macomb County Sheriff's Office, obviously intimately involved with Tony and myself. And the Board of Commissioners represented by Harold, dealing with a lot of the funding as we move forward with this project. There's going to be a lot of asks of the board to make sure that they're parting ways with the dollars and giving the approval to go ahead and sign those checks, and obviously needing to know what specifically is being paid for at what stage of this process. But with that, we are fortunate. We were able to come up with the funding to support this project. And again, a reminder to everyone, the money that came from this was incredibly important from the federal government. The $128 million was the major kickoff to getting this project up and running. So then we had to figure out how do we come up with the additional funds. And so the state of Michigan and our legislature and the governor, very supportive of this project for the reasons that we're going to talk a little bit more about. That mindful approach towards mental health substance abuse. It is without question a transformational way of dealing with people that come in contact with the criminal justice system, specifically those that are brought into the county jail and or remanded to the custody of the county sheriff, that being Tony and his team. And obviously the county, because of the way we've been dealing with our finances over the last 13 years, balanced budgets, but beyond that, making sure that we're putting money away for many of our capital projects. And you've seen some of that happening with Comtech. In fact, we just got through talking about what we did here. Obviously, our parking structure, the new Marine Division headquarters, making sure that we're taking care of the infrastructure that need to be replaced and outdated here in our county's capacity of facilities that we have. And so with that, we had $60 million available to make sure that we added to this project for a total of $228 million. Again, that's cash on hand. We have the money in the bank that we're going to be able to use throughout this process to pay for this. So why are we doing this update? Very simply put, we've seen some of the challenges that others have faced when it comes to major projects, and specifically sometimes jails, meaning government entities. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure everybody is fully informed about what's happening. We're going to be very transparent about any of the issues, concerns that may come about, challenges we may face, and we want to make sure that the media has direct access to us in questioning some of those concerns as we go through this. I believe it's this week or next week you're going to be going to the board to do a presentation.
Yep.
Monday
morning.
To the Board of Commissioners to do a presentation, and once again to update where we're at, because obviously it ties into making sure they're comfortable about spending the money. We're responsible for the project. Board is one of those that has oversight of the funding and the support of that funding for this particular project. So we want to make sure everybody has a complete understanding of what we're doing here in Macomb County on the largest capital project that we have ever embarked upon. And again, $228 million far exceeds the amount of any other project we have ever seen. So with that, we're obviously going to be not only funding the project, we want to make sure people understand the timeline that we have put forth. This is kind of a broad timeline. We do have a more specific timeline that hones in on, pretty much quarters within every year, from this point forward up into 2027. But what we did is we just kind of compacted it for your purposes to kind of give you an idea where we're at. And as we move closer to, the working phases of this, we'll give you more detailed understanding. And I do believe that may be a presentation for the board coming up on Monday. They may add a little bit more detail into that. But suffice it to say, right now we're in that design and construction phase of this, dealing with the design and development. And we're fortunate that we do already have some folks that are on board. Obviously, a Partners in Architect, Granger, and there's another company that's working with Partners in Architect, and that's STV. I believe it's STV. And they start with, what does the STV stand for? I'm not really sure. Anybody?
Just an acronym, yeah.
Just an acronym, okay. So we just...
Nationally recognized in building jails throughout the United States.
Okay. So, and they partnered obviously with Partner and Architect to do the design of the facility, and obviously that's going to be important that we continue to make sure you're aware of. And we're going to continue to update you. As we go through this, we are going to, on a regular basis, when we find the need, update the media, allow you an opportunity to come in and have conversations about where we're at with this project here in Macomb County. So with that being said, Tom, you could hit that next slide, please. The facility itself, one of the first parts of this that we're going to be working through is the demo of the facilities that are currently in place. And we've talked about this endlessly. You know, the lack of need for these, the aging of these facilities, and it's time to get rid of them. You know, with the rehab, the 1970s, D blocks, maximum security, 60s and 70s. And the annex, about the 1990s is when that came into play. All of these are going to be demoed, meaning they're going to be taken offline. And obviously to make room for what we're going to be doing with the new facility being added to, obviously, the tower. But interesting enough, and Tony and I have talked about this, and I think it's going to be unique for the public, the media, maybe even people that are into the movies, that like to make movies. We're going to give that last opportunity for somebody to spend a little bit of time in the county jail. What do we mean by that? Before they do the demo, we're going to be working with the demo company as part of this moving forward with demolition and allowing access to just these two facilities here. These, I'm just going to say it, boring, antiquated, and people really aren't going to get much out of wanting to take a look at the rehab section or this big area here, unless we want to put a pickleball court inside there and let them play pickleball, right? There's really nothing to that. But these have a tremendous interest on behalf of the public, because what you see in the old movies of the bars and the catwalks and everything else that go along with it, that is exactly what these housing units have. Some of you from the media have seen it. You kind of had an opportunity to go inside there. We are now going to give an opportunity, maybe within a month's span. We haven't got the details worked out yet how we want to do that, but we want to open up access so people are going to be able to tour the facility and actually see what it looks like, because once they're demolished, once they're gone, that part of our history is gone forever. So we want to give people an opportunity to see this and see what it is that we've had over the years. Plus, it also gives them an understanding of, that was outdated means or ways of, I guess, if you will, incarcerating people. It certainly doesn't help us with the mental health substance abuse issues we're facing today. But it's a chance for people to see it, kind of get acquainted to what it looked like, and I guess that nostalgic history. Even people that once worked in the facility are going to have a chance to come back and take a look at it. So that's going to be an open opportunity. We'll give you more details on that as we get closer to ideas as to how we're going to actually plan that. And that's going to be kind of exciting, in my opinion. Looking forward to that opportunity. So with that being said, that's the demo part. But also, and Tony's going to talk a little bit about the existing structure. Keep in mind, part of the cost, that $228 million, is not only building the new facility, but also renovating the old, meaning the actual tower, because it still has a useful life purpose to it. And we're going to continue to use that for a lot of the housing, the general population housing. But there were some needs that needed to be upgraded that were part of the thought process even before we decided to embark upon the major project. Was going to happen anyways, so it is still incorporated, and there's a need to make sure we're doing that. Tony?
Yeah, when you look at the capital improvement plan, it's all part of the construction of the new addition to the jail. We've realized that the tower, which holds 900 inmates, and those beds will be available to Macomb County, way into the future, but to utilize those beds, we need to make sure the facility is going to be able to be up and running, that we're not going to run into any problems. And we have a lot of upgrades and repairs that need to be done in the way of mechanical upgrades. The generators in that building will need to be replaced. The fire and domestic water will have to be rerouted. Renovate our gun range. That's something we've been wanting to do for 2 or 3 years. That's going to be part of the CIP project. A big part is integrating the fire and all of the electronics in the old building into the new building, so we have one system, one access point that we can monitor everything. And we have 4 elevators in the tower that will all probably need to be replaced. So as part of this project, we'll be able to take that tower, be able to upgrade that and make that usable, make sure that it's going to operate and we won't have any failures within the tower. And also part of the CIP, we have offices, we have units that are currently in the tower in the areas that are going to be demolished. So we're going to have renovations. We're going to have to move people, move offices, move units to different parts. And let's just use the booking desk. Once we leave the current booking desk, we're going to be able to get in there and repurpose that, put in offices. The booking garage that we're currently used is already on point to be used as an evidence garage for our evidence techs when we secure vehicles. So a lot of moving parts, But again, it's all part of this big project that we're doing.
And again, it was already part of the cost associated with it. We're planning on doing that with facilities and operations. There was already that thought that, we had money attributed to renovating all of this. And so again, we're going to continue to move forward with that as part of this project so that obviously everything gets done pretty much at the same time. Tom, if you go back to the prior photo there. This here, by the way, that's the other concern Tony has to deal with is obviously taking these offline, less beds at the time while we're constructing. They're going to be gone. And so when they're gone, there's no beds available for prisoners. Then we start building the new facility that's going to be over here. You'll see that in just a second, the footprint of that, conceptual. But with that being said, now the question becomes, is there housing available within the current existing facility, mainly the tower, to accommodate the needs of the judges and the folks that are coming into our facility on a daily basis? That is something Tony will continue to work through and make sure they manage that with the courts and obviously other law enforcement agencies. So people are wondering, what does that do? Does that create, the opportunity where you're going to have the less population? Well, that's something we've always dealt with, but fortunately the population has been lessened since COVID. And it's still not quite where it was back 10, 15 years ago, when we were bursting at the seams and looking for more space at that time. So Tony will continue to address that if you wanted to hit on that.
Yeah, obviously, even today as we speak, we have a lot of projects that are ongoing throughout the tower. And, we're taking floors offline as they're doing repairs. So again, we're still moving people into the rehab section, into our D block, the old jail. The maximum security in the annex, they have been shut down for many years and will not be opened back up. But once the demolition and the construction comes, then we have to take inmates that are in here and we'll have to move them into the tower. Today we had 846 inmates at 2 a.m. So we can house 900, plus our booking desk has about 50 some. So we could confidently take all the inmates, put everybody into the tower while we're doing the demolition and constructing the new assessment center.
Yeah. You keep it in mind, it's 2024, we're talking 2027, when we're finally going to be taking full control of the new facility, so there may be fluctuations, there may be challenges, within the system itself, and more population. So those are the things that we'll make sure you're aware of, and we're going to be very upfront about that if we're running into concerns and how we're addressing those. So it's
we
going to be a
take
continued process.
We'll look at once we start taking these sections offline, those beds are not available. We work with the Michigan Department of Corrections, who certifies our rated design capacity. So currently we're just under 1,200 rated design capacity. Once we start taking them offline, if we just have 900, that's going to be our rated design capacity. Anytime we go over that 900 during this project, it enacts the emergency release jail overcrowding statute. So hopefully we'll be able to manage it and work with it. But again, it may be a little rough during the construction phase and demolition when they're not available. But in the end, we're going to have a better facility.
Yeah, and to reiterate, that last chance opportunity to spend some time in the county jail, where we're going to open it up to the public. That's something, again, we're going to be working with the demo crews, and not this facility, not that facility, but D blocks and maximum security. But we want to make sure that whatever we're doing isn't slowing the time frame down. So in other words, as they're staging and getting ready for it, we want to make sure with those conversations they allow us access in here, do what we need to do to give people the chance to see it. And obviously, if it's a 1 week, a 2 week period, we'll adjust according to what they see as the need. But we will not do something that's going to hold up the construction of the project itself. And that meaning if we have to demo, we're going to demo on the time that needs to be demoed. So, thank you, Tony. I mean, go through. Now, this is the conceptual. I'm overemphasizing. We are overemphasizing. Mark wants me to overemphasize, and so does Partners in Architect. They really want us to make sure we understand it. This is a conceptual design that they're headed towards, okay? So I absolutely love it, and I say it for this reason. If you look at the contrast, especially if you look at the old, the D blocks and rehab and, maximum security and the annex that was there, what we're talking about is that mindful approach towards mental health and substance abuse has that medical tone to it. In other words, we understand people are coming in with those needs and those challenges. Well, when you look at this facility, it has kind of that look to it. But yet on the inside, it is a correctional institution. It has cell blocks, it has jails. But it also gives that understanding to the public and everybody, we're already paying for it, let's make it look like something that we're talking about here. So the conceptual look of this is still going to be, whatever the outcome, is going to still have that flavor or that look to it. And again, this building here fits hand in glove with this particular site that we have here too. So in other words, those that are going to be housed in general population will be moved over to the general population with the access through the actual facility here. They're not going to be coming outside. Again, the whole design of this will make sure that everything works fluidly. But even the conceptual look of this really gets me excited because it comes full circle to what we're talking about here. And Tony, if you want to just talk about the features of getting rid of the booking desk here, and then obviously the new booking portion of that, because you can see it rather well on this photo here.
Yeah, right. Obviously, this is the older, our current jail. Prisoners are dropped off, cars pull in, drop off their prisoners, back up, and away they go. This will be the new garage. Now they'll be pulling through 4 lanes, drop off the prisoners, they go out the back, come back around, and head out. Obviously, we have our intake and reception where everybody will be processed, will be assessed medically, mental health, community corrections. Hopefully, we will have the prosecutor's office. If we are going to authorize, we get warrants quickly, get them in front of the court of jurisdiction to get them arraigned. Again, to speed up the process, so we have people that need to be in jail are going to stay in jail. People that could be diverted, whether it's to treatment or to a mental health facility, as long as it's safer to put them back in the community. We have those options. You have our medical wing, then we will have floors of substance abuse, withdrawal units. We will have mental health units, acute, subacute, and then we will have a floor of general population that gives us flexibility in what our need is at the time. We haven't determined who will go up on that general population floor yet. We could move all the females to that general pop floor. We could put trustees in there. Right now, we're years away, but it's something that we have the option for us to do. Also on the main floor, there will be the entrance into the jail facility for those that need to, whether they're coming to bond out an individual, whether if it's attorneys that need to come and see their clients. It'll also have a full service court. There's offices for the public defender, there's officers for the prosecutor, there's office for judge and their staff. So we'll be able to handle court hearings and proceedings there. And that's where we're at.
Which there's a cost savings to that, and obviously a security issue too. So in other words, not having to transport all the time saves money, but also it provides less of a need for security. Once they leave our facility, it's less secured than when they're in the facility.
Right.
So
from COVID, the courts that have pretty much been mandated, if at all possible, there's to use the technology and to use the video technology to handle as many proceedings as possible. This facility has an expanded capability that will be able to handle every court in the county. If a defendant needs to be brought in front of the court, we're able to pull them from the jail, whether they're housed in the new section or they're housed in the old, and they'll be able to be put in front and handle their proceedings. That saves us on transportation costs. It gives us that additional security that we're not taking people outside of the facility, driving them where there's possibility of escape attempts and things of that nature. So everything is going to be in the new facility that we're going to be able to be used. Our community corrections, that's going to be a real integral part in assessing these individuals and making recommendations to the magistrates and judges at the arraignment process, has a big office space in there for all of their staff, so we can keep going and getting that information, and at least hopefully they're currently working days and they do a few afternoon shifts, but if we could have a couple shifts as soon as these people come in, they can be assessed, and judges and magistrates have good information on what type of bond this individual should have, if any.
And it requires a direct connection and a lot of conversation with the folks that we already have existing in our facilities and operations, with Ben Treppa, Jaco from our IT department, and even Steve with the finance, making sure everything comes together. But the embedded technology that goes into this, we need to make sure our IT department is intimately involved, and they are part of these conversations as it moves forward. So what you're not going to get out of this presentation, and nor will they probably have at the board because of security reasons, is the actual layouts of the facilities or the floors. So in other words, we talked about the obviously where they're going to be doing the intake. That becomes something people rather, within a day or two you figure that out, where the prisoners go in. There's the Sally Port area where they're going in. But the rest of the facility on the inside, each floor, we're not going to be giving out the actual floor design. They don't do that in schools. We don't do that in public buildings for obvious reasons. It's security. And so with that, we are going to talk a little bit about the layout itself. If you go to the next slide, Tom. This is kind of an overview of the campus itself. As you remember, once upon a time, the complexity of the campus itself was somewhat confusing, where you had the rehab over here, you had the maximum security, the D blocks, and then the annex, and then obviously the booking area over here. Well, now obviously it's a little bit smoother with just the two existing facilities, make things a little bit more convenient. As you've seen from the exterior with the conceptual design. Am I doing conceptual enough, Mark? So the conceptual design, I want to overemphasize that, all right? So with that being said, obviously, this is kind of the overview of the actual look of the facility itself and what they're going to have with secured parking, service yards, existing jail itself, and then obviously the central intake and assessment center that's going to be new and added to this. So unique concept, but one that's going to be much more fluid than what we've been dealing with in the past.
Yeah, and obviously right here is our connection. It should be a two-story between the old facility and the new facility, where food service, laundry, and transportation of inmates between both facilities can occur securely.
And then here's the portion I was talking about next, is the actual layout of the facility, the 4 floors, main level, first, second, third floor, or fourth floor. With that being said, various populations, square footage is associated with it. Tony, I don't know if you want to get into greater detail or you want to go to the next slide to kind of
just, real quick, obviously first floor has the court, the lobby, the intake. Number 2 is going to be our medical intake housing. 3 is going to be general population, and then 4 at the top is going to be our acute, subacute, detox, mental health units. So just kind of as it's stacked.
And then next slide kind of talks a little bit about more detail as to numbers. In other words, the actual number of people that are going to be in there, the design capacity of the facility that we're building, and obviously the current existing tower and the total beds. So.
Right, and over the last few months, again, over the last 5 years as we've been working on this facility, but specifically the last 4 months or 3 months that we've had the approval, we have had many meetings. I have an internal team that's working for me and working for the sheriff's office to make sure that office space is in the right spot, making sure that our intake as prisoners are coming in, making sure the flow works, make sure it's secure, make sure that everybody's going to be visible. We've brought in the IT, the facilities and ops, probation, prosecution, public defender's office, community corrections. We've brought in all the key stakeholders, that are going to be part and utilize the facility to make sure that it's going to operate and it's going to flow and it's going to work for our processes. And again, we wanted to make sure that we've used the term many years ago, having the right bed for the right people, but we want to make sure we have enough beds to deal with our mental health, acute and subacute. We want to make sure our general population, the medical unit, is it operational? Does it have everything that the medical staff is going to need? We are trying to expand our medical services, and another aspect is to try to reduce the amount of people we have to take to hospital that have issues in the jail, that if we can treat them inside, that saves us from taking road patrol deputies following ambulances to the hospital. So we're really working on that, and we've worked with the medical providers to make sure that they're going to be comfortable with what we're putting forward. Because really, when it comes down to it, the last thing I don't want to hear in 2027 is that we missed something or we forgot something. We brought everybody to the table to make sure that we're all thinking on the same page, and we're all thinking about our own responsibilities and what we need, and making sure those needs are going to be in this new facility.
And inevitably, there is going to be something. There is going to be some challenge that comes along, and that's what we're here to talk about. You know, obviously, we're going to continue to have our conversations, but if we see or there is an issue and we need to pivot, we will do that. I mean, and that's going to be something that might be necessary. You know, but one of our main focuses is making sure that it's on budget and it's on time. That's kind of what we've been commissioning everybody in this process along, and I know Don and Mark are two that are adamant about that. They've been involved in other projects, as I mentioned earlier on, to make that and to make that goal occur. So again, you'll note that obviously the 303 beds added to the facility. You know, the real impetus of this facility is obviously having the right beds, as Tony mentioned, for the right people. But more importantly, that processing and when they bring the people in and who's all on that first floor to address and assess these needs. And if there's community-based support options and the courts agree to that, they don't see them as a danger to society, how do we push them in that direction? And how do we get them in that direction? It's a cost savings, obviously, for the taxpayers of not having to house them in a jail, but those that need to stay in a jail, we're going to have the type of beds for it. And this was all based on studies. So in other words, there's a lot of assessments, needs assessments. Okay, what number of beds will you need based on population, based on what we're seeing, based on what the courts are dealing with, what policies are out there. There's so many things that came into play when they try to make a determination. How many beds do you think you'll need? And not just today, but into the future. So that's, you know, it's going to be built in 2027. We know that obviously things are going to change in 2027. So those numbers are high for what our needs are today, but we do believe 15, 20 years out, this will still accommodate those particular needs that we're seeing. So,
last thing we want is to be overcrowded on the day we open up.
Right.
And I think we've got the right numbers here. In fact, I know.
And a lot of cooperation, obviously, from the courts. They get that. And I think their mindset has changed as well about not, you know, the idea that incarceration is the answer. I think most people have that mindset now that, you know, treatment is a better option than incarceration. But if somebody's a danger to society, we have no option. We need to keep them in a facility. All right, we're glad you all got you here today. We thought this would be a great opportunity, and I know you think it's about the update on the jail, but it's actually not. It's we're having a birthday party for Mark Deldon. So thank you all for coming to Mark Deldon's birthday party. Today is officially his birthday. That is by the way, that is you'll understand in a moment here, that is a non-conceptual picture of Mark Deldon. You'll understand my non-conceptual in a moment here, okay? So I'll highlight that. So we just, we want to make sure, this thing ain't working. Oh, it is. There it is. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mark. Happy birthday to you. You can go ahead and blow on that one. We're not going to eat it with you. So.
I'm going to share it anyway.
No, I didn't think so.
Happy birthday.
So, all right, once again, thank you all for coming. So, appreciate the embarrassing moment for Mark. It is actually technically his birthday today, so I wanted to make sure. This is what it's about. But with that being said,
assessment part of this will work, like in that intake area will be there, the area people can kind of go off to the side and be assessed, like how will that take place?
if I could just mention real quick, that is going on simultaneously. Obviously, the building and construction process that we're working on or whatever, we have folks that are coming together to try to help out with making a determination what would be the best processes to deal with these folks. There's a lot of ideas that they already have, but yeah, right at that facility, the moment somebody comes in, there's going to be assessments that are going to be done.
Yeah, there's the initial, as soon as they walk through the door, there's questionnaires that my staff asks, because we want to identify if there's an individual that's a suicide risk. We want to know as soon as they come through the door. You know, that's a different place that we're going to put those individuals. So once my staff does that initial screening form, they're seen within a period of time by the medical staff. And again, there's mental health experts that'll be on staff that'll also be available. So anybody that's flagged that has a mental health issue or a suicidal issue or a past suicidal issue, you know, those individuals are taken and put somewhere in a different facility, not a different facility, but put somewhere else to make sure that they're seen by those professionals. So there is a system that identifies that.
And keep in mind, this positions us in a very good situation here for additional funding that might be coming out for mental health, substance abuse. Having a facility like this is something I think that you're going to find at the federal and even at the state level, folks wanting to try to figure out how do they support funding-wise, especially within the criminal justice system, these type of processes that are going on in facilities. And since we're designing a facility for that purpose, I got to believe we're going to be first in line when it comes to funding that is finally going to start to come out. Because you're hearing about that. I mean, you hear about it on a national level. Everybody talks about what are we doing about mental health. Well, we're doing something that we can as a county to address it in an area that you know, is very important. People come into contact with law enforcement. But there will be funding that is going to start to come out supporting projects like this. And I think you know, this puts us right at the front of that line.
Mr. Hackle, the neighboring county, Wayne, has had delays in opening their facility because of construction delays. Are there any plans, as you bid out this particular project, to build in some type of incentives for the builders, the constructions, to actually hit the deadline of 2027?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of question about that as we move forward with the project, and Mark is going to be much more intimately involved in that, making sure that we don't have those delays, we don't have those challenges. But understand this, if there is, we're going to be completely upfront about that. So in other words, why we're doing this right now is so you know exactly where we're at in the process. What I don't want is what may have happened in Wayne County, what may have happened in other counties on projects similar to this, is people wondering what's going on, what happened, you know, where are they at with it. We're going to be completely upfront about that. And if there are delays, why were there delays? And you're going to know that firsthand. So I got to believe there's going to be timelines that people need to be met as part of the actual costs associated with it. Mark, I don't know if you wanted to jump into that.
There will be, there will also be penalties.
Can you come up to the podium?
Oh, sure.
Come on up.
Yes, there will be some sorts of incentives, but there will also be some penalties as well if they go beyond. It's one of the things that, there are some things that are beyond our control. Commodity supplies, the ordered in material, we're still seeing that in the industry today since the pandemic. So we have accounted for it. So every project, you always set aside a certain percentage of the construction budget for contingency. That is a pot of money that you tap if there's an unforeseen or unexpected situation occurs. If you're doing a brand new building from the ground up, while this looks like it isn't because we're integrating technology, heating, cooling systems from one building to the other, you would use a lower percentage on a brand new building, maybe around 6 or 7% of total construction. On this project right here, we've set aside a 15% contingency, because whenever you're tearing down old and trying to tie in new, We run into things that may not have shown up on blueprints, and we still have all the original blueprints. One other comment, if I may. No one has asked yet, but you may wonder why the curious, unique bow tie design. And that was highly recommended by the architects out of New York. In a type of facility like this, you want to bring in as much natural daylight as possible. We know what natural daylight does, particularly this time of year, how it impacts our own moods. The people that come into this facility that have mental health issues, daylight is very important. Thank you.
Good point.
Thanks. Yeah, penalties including up to and including prison time in the county jail. So just kidding. I'm just kidding. So.
Did any of those designs at the new facility be incorporated into the tower area, as far as maybe letting in more light or something like that? Because those windows look pretty.
Good cost.
Not without major renovations.
Yeah, major cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is no. We don't anticipate that. You know, those are costs that I don't think anybody would support.
Right.
You know, they do have daylight in each one of the rooms. They do have an opportunity to see. I mean, these little windows here do provide some sense of daylight. Obviously, not to the extent that does,
Right.
but they do. So.
Can you go over the areas that are going to be demolished and which areas are
Go back.
currently
Can you go back to that?
currently
demos.
being used and what's being used, what's not being
Sure.
used?
You bet.
So we'll start over here, the rehab built in 1978. We have minimum security population currently in this side.
How many are there?
I couldn't.
Guesstimate? What would you guess?
104.
Out of fund for? That was designed for.
That's
designed
104,
for.
there's probably 40 or 50 in there today. The D blocks, this is where our medical unit is. This is where our mental health unit is, and we have, there's 6 individual cells that could hold up to 10 people. We are currently using the top floor. So we have some female population in there, and I believe on the bottom level we have some males, and again maybe 30, 40 inmates that are occupying this section over here. The maximum security, that is 60 cells, that hasn't been used in over 4 or 5 years. We've shut that down. And then the annex is empty also. That was a 200-bed minimum security facility. Our work release program was run out of that.
That work release has been going on for a while. Is there
Work release has been gone
Is there any,
since
how to bring it
2008.
back?
No. You think about it, I mean, that goes back to that mindset. Okay, you're either going to incarcerate them or not incarcerate them. When they do the work release thing, there's a huge cost to us to have that staffed and people there. I was there when we decided to build that, and I'm thinking, okay, it was something that the judges at the time wanted, because they wanted to be able to show some level of punishment to somebody, but it took a strain on the resources we had. I couldn't fight against it. You know, it was like one of those things, if this is what they want, I guess I got to figure out how do I accommodate it. But the board at the time had to come up with the funding to support that, I guess, the creation of that facility. And it really wasn't something I was all excited about at the time.
We know, and I've talked to the judges, they like having a work release program because it keeps them employed. It you know, they can provide for their family. But what they've switched is we have weekenders that come in. We probably have 50 inmates that show up every Friday night that we have to process. We keep for the weekend, and then we release them on Sunday. So that's their option, to keep them in the community, keep them working and being able to provide. But that too is not a great system. It's a drain on you know, our staff on a Friday night, which is a busy night, processing all of those individuals. Again, a lot of times we have to figure out where we want to put all these individuals because they are out in the community. And I guess you could imagine that there's a good portion of those 50 that are coming in, and they're going to try and smuggle in some type of contraband for the weekend. So, you know, our staff really has to be on guard to make sure that no contraband gets in there. And if it does somehow slip by us, making sure that it doesn't get to the general population in the facility.
Thank you for clarification. Where is the weekend program based out of?
Well, right now they come in the
How's
front
that?
door and they're processed in our booking, and We, on a
space.
weekly basis, we kind of throw a dart in the jail and figure out where we're going to house them for this weekend.
Where's a bed open?
Yep.
Throw them in.
So,
So again, as Tony mentioned, that's already been offline. That's been offline. There's still housing prisoners in here, but probably
Yeah.
total 80.
right.
to maybe
We
100.
had the rehab section closed there probably for just under a year, but now we're in here. We're doing a meshing project throughout the tower. So individuals can't jump from the second floor. So again, we're shutting down floors so the construction workers can get up there and install the mesh and do other plumbing and that. So, every week my staff comes in and, they have to look at, where we're moving inmates. So,
There are other areas that are not the tower that are going to remain, right? Those areas just
Yes,
adjacent to the...
all this.
right. So you'll have the sheriff's office, our detective bureaus, our records bureau, all of our administrative office, our property room. That'll all remain.
Yeah, everything that's not color coded will remain. Only the color coded facilities are gone.
Yep.
So will those areas be transferred to the new area once it's done, or will those... like,
No,
Detective Bureau and
we will all be staying in here. The only aspect that we're going to take is our jail administrative jail team. The jail
Community
captain will have an office in the new facility along with her lieutenants and her sergeants. All jail operations,
Community corrections and
community corrections will all be on that side. That's also going to be part of the CIP, the capital improvement project. Is okay, those people are gone. What can we do with those offices? What is our need? So we're working on that.
and then the booking, which is right here, booking of property will be transferred over to the other facility as well.
When will you lose the 300? What's the timing on that? Losing the 300 and your capacity moving down to 900 and then
Still to be determined.
Yeah, it'll be just before they
That's-
start demoing.
Yeah.
probably late this year or next year?
Probably within, I assume the demo part, probably I'm going to assume maybe June, July. So right around July, we'll be doing the demo part. So
you
really
mentioned
quickly.
how concerned are you about going over capacity? Because about 15, 20 years ago, you used to have releases all the time.
Right. Well, obviously it's a concern, but it's going to happen, and it's something that we're going to have to do, and we're going to have to deal with. I always go back to COVID. Prior to COVID, we had roughly 800 and almost 900 inmates. Over 700 went out the front door. We were down to 250 during COVID. So
You work with the courts. I mean,
You work, yeah.
again,
You know.
we're not in the business of admiring a problem. If there's a problem, we're going to figure out
Right.
how do we solve it. And so, if that becomes an issue and we start to see
Right.
those numbers come up, we're going to work with the courts and everybody to say, hey, we got an issue.
we
Houston.
gotta reduce
We
it.
got to figure this out.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
And we'll deal with it.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. Otherwise, you sit back and you go, oh my God, we can't do that. I mean, if we do that, we're going to have too many.
We'll
We're not
never get
worried about
done.
it. It'll never get done.
Never
so
get done.
reality is, we're going to make it happen.
Yep.
So we'll manage it.
Is there a name that you'll give to the tower, the existing tower? I know that will be the central assessment center, but will the tower be renamed at all?
we'll just call it like the tower.
It's the tower. It's the
Everybody
jail.
knows it's going to stay the tower.
The J.
So, where's inmate, Joe Smith, he's in the tower. And get him and bring him over to the intake or bring him to the medical. So, yeah.
It won't have a human name
No.
as long as I'm where I'm at, because I'm not into naming buildings after people. So it will be called the main jail, the main tower. So that's what it is.
Is that a lowercase t tower or a capital T tower?
It's pretty big, so we'll make it a capital. So for clarification.
Just if you can recap the immediate next steps that the public will be seeing. So it's a presentation that's coming up, and then what should they be seeing in the next coming weeks?
Yeah, what you're going to have is obviously a presentation in front of the board, letting them know where they're at, so they understand the funding needs as to what needs to be spent on what particular phase of the project that we're in. But with that being said, we know we're going to start moving towards the conceptual design, kind of firming that up, and then putting bids out for demolition of the facility itself. So again, I don't know if you want to be more
Yeah,
specific
no,
about that.
basically, I think we have a couple kickoff meetings starting next week with our construction manager and again, all of the key players. And it's the architects that need to, come up with the blueprints, come up with the design. So that's where the D&D's at. And once they get that done, we're hoping by fall, we will have those documents. It'll all be finalized. Then everything can be put into motion, and demolition, construction, all of that will be starting.
The demo will begin June, July. This year.
That's
It's anticipated July.
anticipated right now
So.
with our current schedule. Don't want to be held to that.
We're gonna underpromise. August, September. So we over-deliver. So,
Is there a concern with these deadlines, because some of this money has to be spent by a certain deadline, the federal money? Are you gonna
we get
spend
asked
the money
that. We get
first?
asked that
Yeah.
all the time. We understand the deadlines. We understand the federal requirements and everything. We are on top of that. So working with our finance department, obviously Don and his team, and even Vicki Wolber, who initiated this, we are very much in line with making sure that money is spent when it needs to, so we're not giving money back.
And if you saw the
So,
timeline that was on the slide, it's all in accordance with
requirements.
requirements and timeline.
Yes. So we have more specific timeline that we put out, and it's each year, quarter. In other words, starting with this year, going to 2027, we actually have that laid out, and each quarter what is going to be happening. It's very complex. I mean, if you look at it, so I didn't want to put it up here for the confusion. We shortened the timelines just to give you some understanding of what we're doing in various phases, year phases. But we do have that. It's just not something we presented here.
You're spending the ARPA money first? Is that?
That's the intent. So yes,
Yeah.
yes. That way we can make some interest off of our money. So, you okay with that, right? You guys all right? Michelle? So, Steve's all about that. So, any other questions? All right, we appreciate
Thank
you
you for
coming.
coming.
And again, we're going to continue to provide these updates. But again, we're always available if you happen to have comments or questions about some of the things that are happening more specific. All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Well done.
Another good one.
Good stuff. Bro.